we got to go back in time. And no, not the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine.
Oh, dang.
Being nice. We're going back to a time when JavaScript was in its infancy and you didn't have the pervasive advertisement video moving pictures screaming at you laden environment that we kind of have today, that we demonstrated on the last live stream. It was kind of gross. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
We just had blinking neon signs down at the bottom that said you're visitor number 2.
Exactly, right? The dancing baby was not that annoying, yet it was everywhere.
Yeah, it's true.
Well,
it was down at the bottom of the page and you didn't have to get there. You were okay.
Right. So when you had a string of 9 dancing babies across the top of the screen underneath the header but above the content, was that fine with you?
It was okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It just took forever to load it because I was on 56K and that GIF was actually kind of big. But yeah.
I actually had high speed by then.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't get high speed until early 2000s. So it was like 2002 maybe? 2001. And let me tell you, the upgrade from 56K on neopets.com to 1 megabit cable internet was so night and day that
very much so.
There were many times where Neopets was like, "You're refreshing the page too fast," and I'm like, "I'm just using the internet, man. What do you mean? I'm just fast.
Yeah,
I'm fast
what
like
you
that.
Gave me. I'm using it.
Get off my grundo. It's time to eat some omelets." and eat omelets, my grundo did. But anyway, so back in 1999, a lot of the pages, not all the pages, JavaScript was certainly there. Flash was certainly there.
Flash.
But a lot of pages were just done in HTML and CSS.
That's true. That's true.
And if you've been keeping your ear to the ground on the whole CMS, so the content management system people, you would know that Matt Mullenweg is kind of throwing a tantrum right now. So Matt Mullenweg is the CEO of Automattic, which is the company that owns WordPress.com, owns and runs WordPress.com, and owns all of the licensing to the open source WordPress.org and WordPress itself, which is open source.
Correct.
Now, we're going to talk about Ubuntu later, but this is funny because this is the same thing that Redis did. They got mad. They were very open source. I forget what the license was, but it was something super open like MIT, where it was just like, we don't care what you do with the code.
Really permissive. Yeah.
And then Amazon was like, all right, we're going to make $1 billion with it. And then Redis was like, no, not like that, And,
right.
And then now there are 8 different forks of Redis and nobody uses Redis, and it's sad. But that's what Matt Mullenweg is doing with WordPress now, where it's like, you can have all this software for free, but not like that. He's mad that WP Engine won, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest seller of WordPress instances and support out there. That's just.
I think they also contribute like code to WordPress upstream.
Well, yeah, and I would assume they would, because their customers demand it, right?
Right. They're trying to make their thing match up with the upstream thing.
Yeah, we're giving you guys $500,000 a year. Can you please make this happen? Because what else are we paying you for, right? Like, that's the support that we want. And so I'm sure they have coders on hand to actually make that a reality, right? Either that or in plugins, something like that, right?
Stuff like that, yes.
Well, Matt's mad because they're not getting enough return, as in money, from all of this.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen with all of that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I'm on a Debian style WordPress roll for my website, right? Where it's like, I don't even think I'm even 2 or 3 minor versions within the current version.
Might not be, yeah.
My WordPress is kind of old. But it doesn't matter. Like
in a way.
Right. Like, as far as I understand, the company I buy this from, because I wanted it to be hands off, right? Like,
Right.
I did used to roll my own WordPress. It was fine. It was on a DigitalOcean droplet. I upgraded it. Everything was cool. Like there was no reason other than I don't want to do it anymore to move companies. But I moved.
Right.
It was super easy. I forget the name of the backup utility. I'll have it linked in here because it's a really good backup utility if you ever need to move from one place to another, but you're on WordPress. It's like, WP Vivid. That's what it's called. Fantastic. And it's free. There are a bunch of pay for services and stuff that you can buy, that you should buy if you use them. But anyway, that's not the point. Point is, I moved to a different company, and they're not on the latest on purpose. They just have an image. They just throw out the image. As far as I understand, I'm getting security updates, but right. So anyway, so my thought was like, this is probably not going to come down to me. If anything happens at all, it's not going to come down to me and hit me for years, like 2028 maybe. And then
it's gonna
whatever Matt does will finally roll into my lap at that point. But the question kind of occurred to me, right? Like, what would I do if WordPress were gone?
I mean, you could go do like I did, and I went to GitHub pages.
Okay. So
and so like I've got a Jekyll thing. Basically, it takes your markdown stuff and it publishes it as, HTML.
That's right. So this is a static site generator, right?
It is a static site.
Jekyll. Yep. There's also Hugo and a few others that are static site generators. You basically write in. There are a few different languages that you can write. Markdown's obviously the most popular. You write Markdown pages, have a little bit of fluff on top that is like Jekyll or Hugo specific, and then it just kind of like crunches it all together and spits out HTML on the other end and CSS. And I wouldn't imagine JavaScript, right? This is a static site, so
no, it's not JavaScript.
Yeah, and by that I mean like there's things aren't changing on the screen dynamically, right? Like there's no endless scroll on these sites.
Nope.
None of that. So simple sites. And so I was like, I could do that. I could totally do that. Or I could go and learn Drupal or
that's an option.
Any of the other
Joomla. That's
Joomla is another one. Yeah, there's tons of other open source content management systems that I could possibly use to do this kind of thing. But then I thought back, what was I doing in 1999? Because one of my projects was to build a website.
Mm-hmm.
And how did I do that? And it was HTML at the time, 4.01, I want to say.
Okay.
And CSS.
Yeah. So if you got some cascading style sheets, that's what CSS stands for, right? That makes all of your pages similar and the same, basically look and feel.
Right.
And then the HTML is the content that lives on top of that on each of the pages, which is unique.
Exactly. So why couldn't I just do that, was my thought.
You totally could. That's an option.
And I couldn't come up with any good reasons to not do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, saying that it's complex and it's kind of hard to do that and you'd have to learn so much. Like, you're not telling me reasons not to do it. You're telling me reasons to do it. Like, I get to brush up on some of the skills that I used to have back in the day, and I get to have a website that I've hand-built myself, and I get to manage the entire stack from top to bottom without anybody telling me what update of what software I could possibly be on. Like, you're just giving me checkboxes, buddy.
Yeah. So then it's just a matter of what do you use to publish that, right? I mean, essentially
Apache or something like that,
maybe.
Right?
Or Caddy, or like take a pick, right? Nginx, even like any of those would probably work just fine for that.
If you say Caddy again, you're going to be in trouble, and by that I mean I'm going to have to be calling on you. It's different than
a little bit
Apache and Nginx, where you just point them at a directory.
No doubt.
And Caddy.
It'll serve up straight up files.
Exactly. So Caddy is different. Coded in Go. It's a single static binary. You just run the thing. Mm-hmm. You can do it in a container if you want to, like from Docker or whatever. But I mean, they'll just serve you up a straight. Here you go. Here's your Linux binary. You just /run it, and you're good.
Yeah. Right.
So you just go poke at the configuration file and make it do fancy things, and there are commands that go along with it to make it do fancy things.
But like Nginx is an option. Apache is an option. Even some of the other ones. There's some smaller ones too. If you didn't have a whole lot of fancy stuff going on.
Right. Light TPD is another option, right? If you wanted to keep it super duper simple. But yeah, so I was looking. One thing that I didn't know was Apache has been overtaken. So for the longest time,
that makes sense, honestly.
Especially back in those days. I mean, this is obviously before Nginx even existed, right? But
sure.
Apache was the #1 web server. IIS was Microsoft's thing, was following pretty close behind, but Apache it was the free one, so everybody used it. Nginx came on the scene around 2004 and slowly but surely made steady progress. They chromed a Firefox. And but Apache doesn't have Firefox numbers. Apache is like 35%.
It's still pretty high.
Yeah, Nginx is like 40, 50% or something like that. And then IIS and the various others are
everything else. Yeah.
Caddy was like 1%. So Caddy's like
it's
the
really
Firefox.
Low, but it's cool. I like
situation.
It. So just saying.
So I like it. I like it too. And then with the first thing I went in and looked for was, here's the one thing that I found that might make this job difficult. So in WordPress, you can have this thing, well, just in any CMS, you can have this thing where you have a consistent header and a consistent footer and a consistent sidebar on every single page that you go to, right? And it's you can make the change in one place and all the footers on all your pages are updated. Well, you could actually do this so I only know the words. Nginx has its own word for it and Caddy has its own thing for it, but it's called server-side includes. And Apache will allow you to have full HTML pages that you, on the server side, so it's my responsibility as the admin to inject this into every page. It will take that HTML code and place it wherever I want on each page, right?
Underneath, right? Yeah.
So I could have that change it in one place, have it on every page, like situation there, but again, it's just more work that I would have to do on the front end to have that ready for publish, and on every new page would have to have the same skeleton of header, footer, sidebar. But that's just a template kind of situation when I wanted to make a new post or whatever.
So Leo's WordPress killer when?
Oh, it's not even close. It will not be anywhere close to this. But what's going to be funny about that is that it's going to be, the blog itself will be overtaken by writing how to make a blog. So every little piece and every little thing that I learn is just going to end up being a blog post about the blog, right? So it's going to be this weird little HTML Ouroboros eating itself. and then eventually when I break out of that, then of course I'll be able to talk about other stuff, or intertwine stuff in between. But yeah, I think that was one of the things, right? Like all the stuff that I've researched has kind of ended up on this show, so the blog has been neglected.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm probably right there with you.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, this eats up all my time. As if I have more time. I'm going to pretend like I do and try to do all this stuff, which is, it seems really fun. So, like, the bonus question at the end of this, right, is I wanted to have a way for, like, the 3 people that are interested in my writing, right? I wanted to have a way for them to be able to actually see it come out in real time, right? So yeah, of course, I'll put it on Mastodon, but for people that aren't there, they're not going to see it. I'll put it on Blue Sky, but for people that aren't there, they're not going to see it. I wanted a Web 1.0 way of getting this information out to everybody. And so I started looking into, well, how do I do an RSS feed? How would I do that in a thing that doesn't have 18 different plugins to like generate that stuff for me? And I mean,
I've never explored this, so you're venturing into new territory for me. I'm listening.
Okay, and it gave rise to a bunch more ideas, which is stupid for me. But but it looks like it's just basic XML, right? Which looks a lot like HTML, behaves a lot like HTML. Is a little more picky about its like spacing and stuff, but generally looks and behaves a lot like HTML. And it didn't look very difficult. It was just tedium. right? Like it would be, you would have to just be very meticulous about how things got put in there, right? But it didn't look very difficult. And then the next question I had was like, okay, well, if I had this thing where like you could get a screen reader to read it all because it's very static and it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
What if I like audiobooked it? What if I had a second RSS feed for like the audio version of these things that I'm writing? I could read it as well. And so like a podcast is just an RSS feed linking to an audio file.
Correct.
And like we don't want to mess with it, so we let somebody else mess with it. But my question is, what if I did want to mess with it though? The real stop there is, where do I store it all?
Right, storage is the thing. Yeah,
that's the hardest thing. And
if the audio files are small, though, I mean, you'd find spots to put that stuff.
I mean, like, I guess I would have to do some tests on like, what does 64K audio sound like? You know what I mean? Like, what does 48K audio sound like? Is it terrible? But also,
well, even like our podcast files aren't terribly large.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the high quality one's 100 megabytes. The high quality one, and we publish a half size one, so they're like 50 megs. So, I mean,
but you got to remember that's like a couple hours worth.
True. So yeah, my reading of a 5-minute article would be 5 minutes. So yeah. much smaller.
Right.
Yeah. So 1 meg a minute is 128K. So if I did that about half, it'd be half a meg a minute. So a 5-minute article would be 2.5 megs. So if I had,
that's tiny.
Yeah. And this is assuming I would write that much. And right, like it would take me years to write enough to fill up a 20 gig hard drive on a actually it's 50 gig. I'm gonna say a dirty word. Oracle gives you 2 free servers that have 50 gigs of SSD storage on each, up to 100, right?
Well, even a $5 Nanode on Linode, you're gonna get 25 gig there.
Yeah, exactly. So it would take me a while to fill that up. Anyway, so all this to say, there may be another journey coming along that we check in on from time to time.
Well, I'll challenge you a little further, Leo. Like,
there's no reason you're giving me a to-do list now. Here we go. I'm ready for it, though.
You're worried about space, but there's no reason you can't do this on your home lab.
This is true.
Use like a Cloudflare tunnel or something to it.
Well, assuming there's only 3 people listening to it. Okay, of the 3 people that read the article, maybe 1 person will download the audio. So, I mean, that would actually be pretty low stakes. Even the Internet Archive will host your stuff for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would just add $1 to my donation every year when they're like, hey, we need money. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forget.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, from $10 to $11. Cool. All right, we're good. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to handle it.
There's options, yeah.
But like right now, that's how Mintcast stores their podcast. Like you can't get Mintcast right now.
Yeah, because Internet Archive's down.
Right.
There's a bunch of podcasts in the same boat, honestly.
Exactly. So that would be kind of a not a non-starter, but it would just be a hurdle to get over. And having the Cloudflare tunnel onto even as a backup, coming back to
your
me
own
or
host
something like
stuff.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, the alternative is you open up some ports and stuff and serve it up that way too.
Yeah,
which is probably less desirable, of course.
It's time to look back. Let's stop with this JavaScript nonsense, man. Let's stop with
turn the clock back.
Exactly. Let's go back a little bit and see what happens if we try to code a website by hand and not have it look like trash.
Yeah, back to basics. I'm on board with this. This is sounding fun.
Oh, see, I got a backup dev already. Great. You heard it here first, folks.
I help with your sysadmin work for you.
Okay. All right. You'll restart Apache for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nice.
All right.
If you like watching our face and enjoy the show, you probably are watching us on YouTube. So, like and subscribe over there. We will look at your comments too, and oftentimes they end up in shows like this. Well,
sure
maybe
do.
Not this show, but feedback stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have the run up like we normally do. This one's impromptu little topic show. Sorry, Internet Archive.
Yeah. So sometimes we grab your comments out of there and we'll use them for feedback here. In addition, we have Tilbids. Thank you for hosting us over there. That is a PeerTube instance that is federated, and it goes out all over the federated universe, if you will. And we usually post just the history bits over there because that's, edutainment, and we think those qualify for that.
I might even start posting whatever we do with this website thingy.
Well, that could go there too. Yes,
right,
absolutely.
Because it's just going to be one of those. Here's how you HTML.
It'll be educational and entertaining all at the same time.
Yeah, entertaining because here's how you don't HTML is actually what those videos are gonna be. So learn from my mistakes rather than learn something outright.
And we'll have a chuckle in between. So that's the entertainment part. But ultimately, if you love us, you love the show, you love what we do, you can give us $1 or $2 over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Linux userspace. We appreciate everyone that does contribute to this and helps, provide what we do have.
Very, very much. Thank you. Even if you're one of the free tier people or whatever, you still get all those notifications about all the stuff that we post to encourage you to hop on.
You're part of the community as well.
Yeah. Appreciate you.